I don't chase, I attract. What's meant for me will simply find me.
In 2017, Forbes named Kendall Jenner the highest-paid model in the world. She had overtaken Gisele Bündchen after a 15-year reign, earning an estimated $22 million in a single year. At just 22 years old, Kendall had reached a level of success that most models spend an entire career chasing. She was walking for Chanel, Prada, Versace, Balmain, Givenchy, and Fendi. She had campaigns with brands like Estee Lauder, Calvin Klein, and Adidas, while appearing on the covers of Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, and nearly every major fashion magazine. To the fashion industry, Kendall Jenner wasn't just another celebrity trying to model. She had become one of the biggest faces in luxury fashion. Yet outside that world, a very different conversation was taking shape. The headlines stopped being about runway shows. The interviews began generating more attention than the campaigns. A Pepsi commercial, comments about working models, stories from restaurant employees, and years of reality television clips gradually reshaped the way millions of people saw her. Today, Kendall Jenner is still one of the most successful models in the world, but success was never the part of her story that changed. For years, Kendall Jenner was marketed as the quiet one. While Kim embraced celebrity culture and Kylie built a beauty empire, Kendall was presented as the grounded sister who preferred modeling over the spotlight. That image worked at least for a while, but viewers watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians were seeing something else. One of the earliest comments came from someone who wasn't even part of the Kardashian family. While talking about how she became friends with Kylie Jenner, Jordyn Woods admitted that Kendall intimidated her when they first met.
It's funny, I was scared of Kendall for like the first 2 years I was friends with Kylie because they did not get along.
Jordyn laughed while telling the story, but the comment immediately stood out. It suggested that Kendall's reputation inside her own circle was very different from the easygoing image audiences had come to expect. Not long afterward, Kylie made a similar remark herself. During an episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, she looked directly at Kendall and said,
"So, you're my biggest bully in life, ever."
The exchange happened casually, almost as if it didn't need an explanation. No one in the room seemed surprised by the comment, making it feel less like a joke and more like an accepted part of their relationship. As the series continued, viewers began noticing the same dynamic for themselves. Arguments between the sisters rarely stayed small. Kendall often responded with sarcasm, dismissed other people's opinions, and rolled her eyes when conversations didn't go her way. Whether the disagreement was about family plans, business, or something completely trivial, she usually came across as impatient rather than playful. Kylie was often on the receiving end of it. There were moments when Kendall mocked her interest in makeup, brushed aside her achievements, or made comments that many viewers interpreted as backhanded compliments rather than genuine support. On their own, none of those exchanges became major controversies. Together, they started creating an impression that followed Kendall far beyond the show. Compilation videos soon began appearing online, stitching together years of arguments, eye rolls, sarcastic remarks, and awkward family interactions. Clips that had originally aired seasons apart were suddenly being watched back to back, making Kendall's behavior appear far more consistent than it had during weekly episodes. The more those videos spread, the more people began revisiting older scenes with a different perspective. What had once been dismissed as ordinary sibling drama was increasingly described as arrogance. Viewers who had watched the show for years started pointing to the same moments as evidence that Kendall had always carried herself differently from the public image built around her. At first, most people dismissed these moments as reality television. Before long, similar stories began appearing away from the cameras. Kendall Jenner has never denied that she comes from one of the most famous families in America. What drew criticism wasn't her last name, it was the way she described her journey into fashion. Her modeling career began in 2009, when she signed with Wilhelmina Models at just 14 years old. Soon afterward, she landed a Forever 21 campaign, magazine covers, and within a few years, a coveted runway debut for Marc Jacobs at New York Fashion Week. For most aspiring models, reaching that stage can take years of castings, rejections, and unpaid work. Kendall's rise happened at remarkable speed, prompting questions about how much of it was talent and how much was access. As those questions grew louder, Kendall consistently argued that she had earned her place. During an interview with Andy Cohen, she said she intentionally removed Jenner from her modeling comm cards because she wanted agencies and casting directors to judge her on her work rather than her family name. She described traveling across New York and Europe, attending castings, and working just as hard as every other model trying to break into the industry. According to Kendall, people only assumed success had been handed to her because of the family she was born into. But later in that same conversation, she described how her modeling career actually began. At 14, she put together a small book of modeling photos and handed it to her mother, Kris Jenner. As Kendall told the story, Kris did her Kris Jenner things and made it happen. That admission immediately undercut the image she had spent years promoting. Kris Jenner never pretended otherwise. While presenting photographer Russell James with an award at the Daily Front Row Fashion Awards, Kris publicly thanked him for helping make Kendall's dream come true. It was a rare acknowledgement that influential people inside the fashion industry had been involved from the very beginning. Rather than discovering Kendall through open castings, established names were already helping launch her career. That became the center of the nepotism debate. Most people understood that Kendall Jenner had opportunities other aspiring models didn't. The fashion industry has always welcomed celebrity children, and Kendall wasn't the first or last. The criticism wasn't simply that doors opened for her, it was that she often described her experience as though those doors had never existed. That perception only intensified after an interview with Love magazine. Speaking about Fashion Week, Kendall explained that she and her team had always been selective about the shows she accepted. I was never one of those girls who would do like 30 shows a season or whatever those girls do. To Kendall, the comment may have been an explanation of her schedule. To many working models, it sounded like a dismissal of the people who accepted every casting because they couldn't afford to turn the work down. For countless models, walking dozens of shows wasn't a choice. It was how they paid rent, built relationships with designers, and stayed in an intensely competitive industry. The reaction from within fashion was swift. Models, editors, and industry observers criticized the remarks across social media and in interviews, arguing that Kendall's career had been shaped by opportunities unavailable to nearly everyone else. Publications including Vogue covered the backlash as the quote spread far beyond the original interview, turning a single comment into one of the defining controversies of her modeling career. For many people, the issue wasn't that Kendall had famous parents. It was that she insisted her path had been no different from everyone else's. By this point, Kendall Jenner's critics weren't just pointing to reality television clips or magazine interviews anymore. A growing number of stories were coming from people who claimed to have encountered her in everyday settings, restaurants, coffee shops, clubs, and public events. None of the incidents were career-ending on their own, but together, they began shaping a reputation that followed her everywhere she went. One of the earliest stories to gain widespread attention dates back to 2014, when Kendall and Hailey Bieber reportedly dined at Mercer Kitchen in New York while they were under the legal drinking age. According to a server who later spoke about the encounter, the pair left the restaurant without paying after being refused alcohol. When an employee followed them outside to collect the bill, Kendall allegedly responded by throwing several $20 bills at the server before walking away laughing. The story quickly spread across entertainment outlets and online forums, becoming one of the first viral accounts of Kendall allegedly mistreating service staff. Employees at the Brooklyn venue Baby's All Right posted a photo of Kendall's receipt online, showing a bill with no tip left behind. The image spread rapidly across social media before eventually being deleted, but screenshots continued circulating for years. Whether it reflected a misunderstanding or exactly what it appeared to show, it became another example regularly cited whenever Kendall's treatment of hospitality workers was discussed. Those weren't the only accounts from restaurant employees. Former servers and hosts later shared their own experiences online, describing Kendall as distant, unwilling to speak directly to staff, and often communicating through someone else instead. One worker admitted they were trying to give her the benefit of the doubt, suggesting she might simply be shy, but still rated the experience poorly after several encounters. None of the stories accused her of anything outrageous. Instead, they described someone who consistently left employees feeling ignored or disrespected. Similar claims began appearing on TikTok. One woman, who said she regularly crossed paths with Kendall in West Hollywood, described repeated encounters over several years. According to her, Kendall Kendall frequently skipped lines at neighborhood coffee shops, shut down restaurants that already had customers inside, and expected businesses to rearrange themselves around her schedule. She also recalled attending a friend's birthday party at a nightclub where their group had paid for a table near the DJ. After Kendall arrived, security allegedly moved the group so Kendall could have the better table instead. While taking photos of the birthday celebration, the woman claimed Kendall's security team began grabbing phones from guests because Kendall was under 21 at the time and didn't want to be photographed. Away from restaurants, Kendall attracted criticism for how she handled public spaces. She was photographed parking in handicapped spots on multiple occasions, prompting paparazzi to question her about it directly.
Hey Kendall, a lot of people are upset you're parking in the handicap spot. What do you say to people that are kind of upset about this?
After those incidents drew attention, photographers later caught her stopping in a fire lane instead, creating another round of headlines. Neither incident resulted in a major scandal, but they reinforced the perception that ordinary rules didn't always apply to her. That impression resurfaced during a visit to New York's Metropolitan Museum of Art. Video captured Kendall stepping over a barrier at the entrance rather than following the designated queue, only to be immediately stopped by a museum employee. Another widely shared clip from the Met Gala showed her pushing a security guard aside while moving through the crowd. Around the same event, she was criticized after laughing with Hailey Bieber while imitating influencer Addison Rae's red carpet poses, a moment many viewers interpreted as mocking another guest. Even brief fan interactions became talking points online. In one viral clip, Kendall smiled while taking a selfie with a supporter before her expression changed almost instantly as she walked away. Another showed her posing for photos with her team before rolling her eyes the moment the cameras were no longer pointed at her. Individually, they lasted only seconds. Collectively, they fueled compilation videos that argued the same attitude appeared again and again. None of those stories proved what Kendall Jenner was like every day or with every person she met, but as more restaurant workers, event staff, and bystanders shared similar experiences, each new account found an audience that had already heard the last one. One story could be dismissed. 20 stories were much harder to ignore. By 2017, Kendall Jenner had become one of the most recognizable faces in fashion. She was walking for the biggest luxury brands in the world, fronting global campaigns, and had just been named the highest paid model on the planet. For Pepsi, she seemed like the perfect choice for a commercial built around youth, optimism, and togetherness. Instead, it became one of the most infamous advertisements of the decade. The commercial opens with Kendall leaving a photo shoot after noticing a crowd of young protesters marching through the streets carrying signs with generic messages about peace and unity. Smiling, she joins the demonstration before approaching a line of police officers. As cameras flash, she hands one officer a can of Pepsi. He takes a sip, the crowd erupts in applause, and the tension instantly disappears. Within minutes of the commercial being released, social media exploded. Viewers accused Pepsi of borrowing imagery associated with real protest movements and reducing those events to a feel-good soda advertisement. Critics argued that the commercial suggested deep political divisions could be resolved with a soft drink while using the visual language of protests that had cost real people their safety and in some cases their lives. The backlash spread far beyond entertainment news. Journalists, activists, celebrities, and politicians all weighed in. One of the most widely shared reactions came from Bernice King, the daughter of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who posted a photograph of her father being confronted by police during the civil rights movement, alongside the caption, "If only Daddy would have known about the power of Pepsi." The post was shared hundreds of thousands of times and quickly became one of the defining responses to the campaign. Less than 24 hours later, Pepsi pulled the commercial. The company issued a public apology, saying it had missed the mark and apologizing for attempting to address such an important issue in that way. Pepsi also apologized directly to Kendall Jenner, acknowledging that she had been placed at the center of a controversy that rapidly spiraled beyond a single advertisement. While Pepsi spoke publicly, Kendall did not. She largely disappeared from the conversation as the commercial dominated headlines. For weeks, the advertisement became the example people referenced whenever companies tried to tie products to social movements. Even years later, mentioning the Pepsi ad was enough for most people to know exactly which commercial was being discussed. When Kendall finally addressed the controversy on Keeping Up with the Kardashians, the emotion was still visible. Fighting back tears, she admitted she had trusted the people around her and believed the campaign would have a positive message. Instead, she found herself at the center of one of the biggest public relations disasters of her career. Kendall said she cried constantly after the backlash, describing the experience as overwhelming because she had never intended to offend anyone. She later called participating in the commercial the biggest mistake of her life. The apology helped explain her perspective, but it didn't erase the commercial from public memory. Every time Kendall appeared in a new campaign or sat down for another interview, the Pepsi ad resurfaced in comment sections and social media threads. It became shorthand for tone-deaf celebrity marketing, and Kendall's name remained attached to it long after the commercial itself had disappeared. It also changed the way people reacted to everything that came afterward. Before Pepsi, each controversy surrounding Kendall Jenner was usually treated as a separate incident. After Pepsi, people started connecting them, and criticism no longer followed Kendall. It waited for her. The Pepsi commercial was supposed to be a one-time mistake. Instead, it marked the beginning of a pattern where nearly every major project Kendall Jenner became involved in was followed by another wave of criticism. Whether it was a fashion editorial, a business launch, or a sponsored campaign, the conversation rarely stayed focused on the product itself. One of the first examples came through Vogue. In a fashion editorial, Kendall appeared wearing a large Afro-style wig. The photos were intended to evoke a retro aesthetic, but many readers saw something entirely different. Critics accused the magazine of appropriating black hairstyles for a fashion spread without acknowledging their cultural significance. The backlash intensified across social media, with many arguing that the look should never have been approved in the first place. As criticism mounted, Vogue removed the images from its website and issued an apology, saying it had failed to reflect the values it wanted to represent. A few years later, Kendall stepped into the spirits industry with the launch of 818 Tequila. She described spending years developing the brand, traveling to distilleries, participating in blind taste tests, and even entering international competitions anonymously before finally unveiling the product. But almost immediately, attention shifted away from the tequila itself. The promotional campaign showed Kendall riding horseback through agave fields while Mexican laborers harvested crops behind her. To supporters, it was simply branding. To critics, it looked like a wealthy American celebrity using traditional Mexican imagery to market a product rooted in a culture that wasn't her own. Social media filled with accusations of cultural appropriation, while others questioned why another celebrity was entering an industry that already had generations of Mexican producers struggling for recognition. The criticism didn't stop there. Tequila enthusiasts pointed out that 818 was produced at a distillery that manufactures dozens of other tequila brands, challenging the impression that Kendall had created something uniquely her own. Others noticed errors on the original labels, including incorrect Spanish wording that was later changed. Instead of discussions about taste or craftsmanship, the launch became dominated by debates over authenticity, branding, and celebrity influence. Then Kendall released a dramatic teaser telling fans she was preparing to share something deeply personal that would help young people. Her mother, Kris Jenner, added to the anticipation by describing the announcement as brave and vulnerable. Online speculation exploded. Some believed Kendall was finally going to discuss cosmetic surgery, body image, or another deeply personal struggle. Instead, the reveal turned out to be a paid partnership with Proactive. Kendall said the skincare brand had helped clear her acne and encouraged others dealing with similar struggles to try it themselves. But viewers quickly pointed out that years earlier she had publicly credited celebrity dermatologist Dr. Christy Kidd for transforming her skin. The emotional buildup, followed by what many saw as a skincare advertisement, left audiences feeling misled rather than inspired. Around the same time, speculation surrounding Kendall's appearance continued to grow. As discussions about cosmetic procedures spread across social media, Kendall repeatedly denied having plastic surgery, insisting she had never undergone facial procedures. Her comments did little to quiet the debate. Instead, every new interview sparked another round of side-by-side comparisons, reaction videos, and online arguments over whether the public should believe her. By then, the pattern had become familiar. A new campaign would launch, A product would be announced, an interview would air. Within hours, attention shifted from the project itself to another controversy surrounding Kendall Jenner. The headlines were no longer driven by what she was promoting, they were driven by how people reacted to it. Kendall Jenner is still one of the most recognizable figures in fashion. The campaigns continue, the runway shows continue, the business ventures continue, but so do the conversations that have followed her for years. Long after the headlines have faded, the debates remain, becoming part of the story itself. And that's what has made Kendall Jenner more than just one of the world's most successful models. She's become one of the most discussed and divisive celebrities of her generation. If you enjoyed this deep dive, subscribe for more stories that go beyond the headlines. We break down the controversies, scandals, and untold stories behind the world's biggest names. Thanks for watching.